Right. Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, June 8th, 1:00 EST. Excited to have another episode of Contact Center Talks, where we basically dive into anything and everything contact centers. My guest today is Chris Flaccavento. I know I probably murdered that, but very Italian, very Italian. Chris is no shock from the upper Northeast. And we'll kind of get into a little bit of his background, that type of stuff. But excited for everybody who was able to join. And again, the idea of this is just to have some really good conversations about this space that we've all lived in or we're in now, which is contact centers. And if you haven't been around it and you don't know much about it, it is definitely niche and unique. You're not going to college to learn how to run a call center, are you, Chris?
No, that's for certain, Mike. And first and foremost, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here and talk about this thrilling world that we're in, in the contact centers, right? But no, I don't think anybody grows up, saying to themselves, I'm going to be a call center rep or I'm going to be a manager in a call center, right? It's just kind of a skill we learn at some point in our careers that, hey, you know what, we have a knack for this, and we enjoy talking to people, and we enjoy helping people, and here I am, and great, let's make this happen.
So you're the director of operations, director of call center for 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗵𝗲𝗿, and tell us a little bit about 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗵𝗏 and what you do there, and maybe what they do.
Sure. So, 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗵𝗏, our main purpose is to help more people hear better. And what that means is that, we are a hearing device, hearing aid company. We have retail clinics from coast to coast, upwards of about 650 retail clinics. And our call center supports not only those clinics in setting their appointments for consultations, but any type of customer service inquiries or any information that any of our patients may need, any complaints, whatever it may be. That's what our call center is there to do, is to help out with all of those operations. But we pride ourselves on our customer care and providing a top-notch customer experience.
Yeah, it is unique because I think a lot of people, when they hear contact center, call center, they kind of use that. They assume telemarketing, right? They assume that you're calling people during dinner. I mean, I've been in the industry my whole life. I started when I was 16, and I still, when I visit my grandparents or whoever, they're like, "Are you the guys that call me at dinner time? Can you take me off the list?" So, I think people just, they equate that. They think call center, contact center. But what it sounds like is you guys are, you're an arm of something, important. I mean, that changes and affects people's life every day. And so I think it's awesome. I think more people, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today is more people understand that, contact centers, this isn't just a world of sales, right? This isn't just a world of telemarketing, that, a lot of huge companies that have a lot of responsibilities, either in the healthcare space or other space, they all have contact centers, and they need, when we reach out, we contact, or we inquire about something, that's normally going to go through an operation like your own. So
absolutely.
Tell me a little bit how you got into it. I mean, I started when I was 16, it was kind of my first part-time job. What was your experience, and how did you get into this crazy world?
I claim that my story is kind of unique, or at least I think it is. But I by trade, my first trade, I should say, was auto mechanic. And I grew up in the auto mechanic industry. I had a family-owned business for years, and I was in elementary school and into high school, going to my uncle's auto repair shop, sweeping the floors, as a kid, right? So I grew up in that world. And then, some things changed in my life, and I needed something a little more secure, a little more more stable. Auto industry was kind of on a decline. So
Sure.
I got into the cable telecommunications world,
Okay.
and I was installing cable. I was kind of going from home to home, working there, and then found myself transitioning into the call center. And that's how I got my call center start about 10 years ago or so as a
Okay.
technical support representative. And that's really when I think, I kind of found my groove, in my career, and realized, what, I've got a knack. I
Yeah.
enjoy this. I love helping people. And then, this is something that I want to continue to do. And I kind of just worked through the ranks from there to find myself where I am today.
Yeah, and it's a unique story, but I think a lot of people start in the same place to where you start at a certain level, you see opportunity, you duplicate yourself. However, that process, somebody put an eye on you and said, "Hey, man, this guy can do some good things for the company." And so you kind of start that progression, right? That track from supervisor, running a team, and then kind of so on and so forth to the level at now where you're actually in charge of all the operations within the call center.
Yeah.
Did you know that though? When you walked in there to be the service rep with the cable company, did you say, "I'm going to run a center one day"?
I had absolutely no clue, Mike. No clue whatsoever, right? At the time, it was a good job with a decent pay and something I needed. I was starting a family, right?
Yeah.
And realized, that I truly enjoyed it. And then I enjoyed not only, helping people over the phone, but I enjoyed helping my teammates, my colleagues. And,
Yeah.
then I became interested in becoming a team lead and then a supervisor, and I came into the hearing live space as a supervisor,
Okay.
and found myself doing more of the same, not only leading my team, but working with my colleagues and really enjoying, helping them become better as well, to where I was, given the opportunity to run the show, so to speak. And at that time, which was pre-pandemic, pre-COVID,
Hmm.
we didn't do everything that we do today, right? We were very, very simple, if you would, for lack of a better word. We had our outbound telemarketing aspect, and we had our inbound phone calls. Nowhere near, at the level of sophistication that we consider ourselves at today, where we're doing web chat inquiries, we're answering emails from our customers. We have a customer service dedicated inbound team. We have a
Sure.
team that handles, marketing generated sales. This is all things that have kind of been developed over the past few years, and a lot of it as a result of the pandemic itself.
Right. And that's one thing I wanted to kind of dive into because you have the unique experience of saying, okay, I started as a call center. I started in this position within these people where you can really affect change, especially as a supervisor, right? You can affect change pretty quick, right? Something happens, you go talk, some boss brings you in, and then you're out and you're making it happen immediately,
Sure.
right? Everybody click off, or however your process is, you can affect change immediately. And so you grew up in that, right? In the call center world per
Yeah.
se, and COVID hits, right? So
Yeah.
walk me through, what did you guys do when COVID happened and all of a sudden they said, "Hey, nobody can go to work anymore"?
Yeah, it was scary. I'll be very honest. I hadn't had a lot of experience remote,
Yeah.
hadn't had a lot of experience working from home. So we were in the office here in New Jersey, and we only had a handful of individuals that were working remotely, but they had all previously worked with us in the office, right? So
Okay.
we had nobody that we had on our workforce that was hired to work from home
So
originally,
they were
right?
trained, they knew how to do the job.
They
It's
knew
just
how to do
really
everything,
okay.
right? So it was just basically for them, and I can count them all on one hand, making the transition to work from the office into their home environment. But there was no training, there was no onboarding, there was none of that we needed to
Let me
do.
ask you a question, interrupt just for a second. Did you
Sure.
lose anybody? Did you have some people that just couldn't go from the call center to now they're in this unique environment, it's at home, or they didn't have a workplace, or they didn't have any type of area for that?
Not necessarily, because
Okay.
of the situation, we had to furlough some individuals, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't continue with the same amount of employees that we had pre-pandemic.
Okay.
But of those that we retained, everyone really transitioned quite well into the work from home environment.
Okay.
So it wasn't to my recollection, there wasn't anyone
Yeah.
that really couldn't make that transition. I think it was just a kind of a response mechanism, right? As we
Yeah.
understand the state of the country, what's going on, and this is kind of what we have to do.
And I think people at that time, so I was actually running call centers during the pandemic as well. And I remember like it was yesterday, right? All of a sudden we're in a meeting. I'm the director of operations and they're like, Mike, we're closing the centers. And I mean, there was 3 or 4 centers at this time. And the technology at the time, we had all premise. So everything was in-house, servers, everything. And the agents would show up to work. They'd go to their workstation. They would work. So when that happened, my coaches physically would drive to agents' houses and help them set up their computers and some of this other stuff, because these agents at this time, they were doing fundraising. They're not geniuses with how this technology works. They come in, they sit down, they do a good job, and then they go home.
Sure.
So that transition, it sounds like for you was a lot easier because you didn't have to worry about the other pieces of new hires and training people.
Not at the time, not yet, right? We still had the technology piece for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, we're all working in the office. We all have our desktop machines. That's what we're working off of, right? And now we're issuing out laptops, right? And instead of working from 2 monitors comfortably, at least temporarily, you're working off of 1 laptop screen, right? And so that's kind of how it was overnight for us.
Sure.
And to your point, we had some folks that just weren't as savvy as others when it came to the technology, right? Nor would we expect them to be, right? That's not what we hired them for. So there was a lot of that. And I, made some, house calls myself where I was dropping off a laptop here, or dropping off a headset there, right? And then, my team of supervisors was doing a lot of the same.
Yeah.
And we did find ourselves doing that. We had a really strong IT team in place that helped us through that, right? So we made the call over one weekend. We gave it about a 48-hour buffer before we started actually working physically from our homes. And during that process, we were able to, figure very quickly out how we're going to issue the equipment, how is this going to look, and so on and so forth. But
you made it, right? You made it. You're alive. And now what changes though? So Hearing Life now is temporarily, agents are at home. We're doing the job, right? Doesn't mean the processes are in place to do it great, but we're doing the job.
Right.
So the good news, I think, is you are a part of that transition. So now you understand the struggle. You understand what we did. You're coming in now to build, I assume, an operations team that can live at this, right? You're going to lose people. You're going to have to hire people. You're going to have to train new people. And so how did that happen? How did you guys figure out like that first new hire we hired, that the way we train them, the way they're going to operate, it's going to be a little different than how we all were trained or how we all, learned?
100%, and I was lucky in the sense that, when the pandemic hit and we made the decision to start working from home, I was about a year into my tenure as the leader of the whole call center. And about 6 months prior to that, I was able to restructure my whole entire leadership team, right? Supervisors and team leads. So they were about 6 months into the gig, right before we had to start working from home. I lucked out a little bit to where some of that, and this wasn't even a requirement when we brought them on, already had work from home experience, already had experience managing teams remotely, and that was a huge benefit to me, obviously, in putting our plan together. But we had to almost reinvent the wheel, if you would, right? Because hiring, when we did start hiring again, yes, hiring remotely greatly expanded our talent pool, right? Because we're no longer hiring in one specific area of one specific state, right? We're now hiring across the country. We have retail clinics across the country. We support them on a daily basis. We're now able to have individuals in those particular areas, supporting those clinics directly. And what was really nice was to really see that and open up that talent pool and realize that, hey, we could really build something special here, with the right plan in place. But, it wasn't easy. I mean, the way that we had trained, the way that we onboarded representatives, it was all hands-on. It was all classroom setting, if you would, right? So
Yeah.
we had to transition a lot of our hands-on teacher in front of the classroom, if you would, right, to more of self-paced modules, right?
Okay.
Accessing our intranet and, take this module, let's go through it. We review it afterwards. Then we put it into use, right? And then explore what we just learned real time, and kind of just reinvented, if you would, the way that we train or rethought the way that we train, the way that we onboard, and so on and so forth. So it was big for our trainer at the time to
Yeah.
be able to, adapt to that because this was an individual once again that was brought in as a trainer to train in front of a class of people.
Right, which is a whole technique and talent on its own, right? Like
Sure,
you hired them because they're good at that.
exactly. And now we're doing it virtually, right? And that in front of the class type environment doesn't have the same impact virtually as it does in person. So
Correct.
how can we continue or better our impact, right? The comprehension of the material in the remote world. Well, we ultimately decided on utilizing these self-paced modules
Yeah.
and then having multiple quizzes, multiple follow-up, multiple discussions after every little thing that we discuss to ensure that everyone gets it, and then we move on. And we've also introduced more time on the phones before they move on to their respective roles,
Okay.
which is something that we kind of had what we refer to as a nesting group in our call center where we would we'd onboard somebody for about a week, and then they would move on to a nesting group, which is a group of all newly hired employees, and
Sure.
they would remain in that group for a week, another week, maybe 2, 3, depending on their specific needs. Not easy to accomplish that virtually, so we had to change that process as well, where we extended our training class from 1 week to 2 weeks. And then
Okay.
that second week, still working with the trainer, primarily on the phones for that whole 40 hours that week,
I was
right?
about to ask you because similar type model of call centers I ran to where you get the new hire and you either buddy them up or you have a nesting group or you have some type of, process that gives them reality before they do it, right? It
Right.
gives them the ability to hear it done live, that type of stuff. And it sounds like you guys expanded your training. You kind
Yeah.
of you expanded the amount, not only the type of way somebody learns, right? You're talking about these self modules and those type of things, but also expanded the amount of time that you're going to give them to get fully, trained, right? And so you're not the only one. I've talked to a couple of people now about self modules and about training in that virtual environment. So is this a case where your company, you guys have these modules, you created these modules internally, or is this where you use a piece of software, or how does that work?
So yeah, it was created internally.
Okay.
I'm not super familiar with the software that's utilized for them. We
Okay.
have a great learning and development team that put them together for us. We worked hand in hand with this group to help us put the modules together for the training and the specific needs that we needed in our call center.
And I would love to, if you have time one day to kind of, dive into that a little bit, because
Sure.
I have people that I know that are real close to me that are running these operation type hybrid remote positions,
Hmm.
and that's where they struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
they really struggle with getting people down that learning curve quick enough and getting them to a point where they're either self-sufficient or to the point where they're profitable, right,
Right.
in some cases. And so any type of insight that you can give me on that would be awesome. You'd help out
Yeah.
multiple
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it's a lot of follow up and a lot of continual coaching is really what it is. So you have your training period, but it doesn't stop there,
Hmm.
right? We'll have 1 week where we're going through these self-paced modules, get a little taste for what it feels like to be on the phones, doing the side by sides that you alluded to, Mike.
Yep.
With one of our tenured agents, listening in on those conversations, and then ultimately in that second week doing it themselves. But even after that, right? And even after they move on to their respective teams, to their role that they were brought in to do, the training doesn't stop, the coaching doesn't stop. One of the things that we learned that we needed to do differently in the remote world versus the office was restructure the way that our team leads and supervisors operate.
Okay.
And in the office, our team leads were kind of an extension of the supervisor, but they were
Okay.
also on the phones
Yep.
themselves, right? So a portion of their day, they're on the phones. The other portion of the day, they're working with their teammates, coaching, working with the supervisor. That completely changed when we started working remotely.
Okay.
Our team leads now oversee a group of representatives, a group of team members. And our supervisor has their own little group of team members, but is primarily working with the team leads,
Got it.
right? So we kind of changed our hierarchy there. And the goal was so that we didn't have one supervisor with a couple team leads and then ultimately 40 team members or 30 team members under them. It was to make sure that there was more personalized care for
Okay.
each and every team member. Because what was so important when we transitioned from the office to working from home was that we promoted a sense of inclusivity, right? We made sure that we didn't feel like we were by ourselves working from home in our own little world, right? We wanted to feel part of a team. So we had to think of ways to be able to do that and ways to continue to be productive, right? Team lead comes in the morning. They make sure that they say hello, good morning, to every one of their people. We use the Microsoft Teams, reach out via chat or whatever it is, a phone call, and they're constantly, in communication, talking about maybe some challenges we had from the day before, challenges we're having throughout that day, role playing, working through them, making sure that we're on top of our numbers, staying as productive as we can be.
Okay. So you actually layered some more management in there, right? So you layered another layer of ability to communicate, touch, be able to manage, develop, coaching, whatever you want to name it, within the process. Do you feel like if you had to go back, right, and you had to go back into the call center, would you still keep that layer, or is that a unique to, let's say, the remote because you can't physically face-to-face talk?
We made the change because of a need.
Okay.
But if we were to transition back to the office, I wouldn't change a thing.
Okay. So you've seen that positive impact just from being able to communicate more and more often.
100%. 100%. It just feeling included. I think in the office, it's kind of obvious, right? Because everyone's there, right? So you're there, you're part of the team. But even, just from a more personalized type of support, the structure that we have right now allows for that, and if we went back to the office, I'd want to keep everything exactly the way it is.
So that's the other thing is where I talk to call center companies that struggle with the hybrid or remote environment. Is there anything you guys are doing to help? Layering in the management helps a lot with culture. I mean, you guys are representing a very large brand. You're representing something that people should be, they should be pretty proud of, the fact that, hey, we're helping. We're not just somebody trying to, sign deals. We're actually helping people in their way of life, right?
100%.
Here and now you can hear. That's a miracle, right? And so, is there anything you guys do a little different, or any advice on helping to kind of foster that culture and spread that goodwill that you would get inside a physical center? You would see it, you would kind of feel it, but now that you're at home, is there anything you guys are doing in that culture?
Yeah.
Type thing?
And it has a lot to do with this inclusivity that I'm referring to, right? Because
Okay.
it's not only the multiple touch points throughout the day, but it's team meetings regularly, right? Even if it's just for 15 or 20 minutes every week, it's getting together off the phones as a team, talking about these things, right? So our goal is to help more people hear better. Our goal is to help people, right? And we want to make sure that is heard loud and clear throughout our business, right?
Right.
The work that we're doing in the call center helps that. We are directly helping people, and we have to think of ways, right, that our team members can see the work that they're doing, can
Sure.
understand how impactful the work that they're doing is. And we don't stop talking about it, right?
Right.
We don't stop talking about it. We have monthly huddles, we have weekly meetings, we have all these different things layered in where we're able to talk with our team members regularly and talk about the incredible work that they're doing, right?
Right.
And building that culture and helping our team members understand that they truly are changing people's lives, and it's not only through the communication, but it's getting our team members involved in multiple things as well. you
Okay.
know Everyone's here to do a certain role, but there's some individuals that are eager to do more, there's some individuals that are willing to do more and want to do other or different things that can impact the business positively as well. So we have an incredible careers page where we've asked some of our representatives to provide their own video testimonials on why they love what they do every single day.
Right.
And we've posted those to our careers page and we've promoted that through LinkedIn, through other platforms, right? And it's getting people involved remotely as much as you possibly could, the same way you would in the office,
Right.
right? And that to me is pretty much what's key. And on a different level, we talk about, you talk about the culture, talk about promoting what we do, but the team needs, right? The needs of the employee, the needs of the team member, their thoughts, their suggestions, their opinions have to be heard,
Right.
right? So we have to create platforms to be able to allow them to, have a voice,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
So whether it's message boards through our intranet, whether it's a steering committee, type meeting and having these type of conversations, whether it's just simply making sure that so-and-so had a suggestion, let's talk about it, let's think about it, letting the team member know that they have a voice, that their thought, their suggestion, their opinion on something is actually going to be listened to by those that need to hear it and
Right.
then discussed, and then going back to them and following up and following through and saying, hey, thank you for your suggestion. This is what we're doing because of it. Those type of things really is what keeps our culture going and being as flexible as we possibly can, Mike. Life happens. Yes, we run a call center. Inbound, maybe not as flexible, right? Calls are going to come in no matter what. Outbound, there's a little more flexibility. If somebody needs to take a couple hours, let them take a couple hours,
Yeah.
right? No
Yeah.
problem.
Well,
Life happens. Being super flexible in this work from home environment, you can't be successful without being flexible.
and
I mean, of course, you have some processes and protocols in place, right?
yeah.
It's not a free for all, so to speak. But
Right.
somebody needs to leave for a couple hours. Okay, great. Let's figure out when you're able to make up the time, and we move forward.
Yeah.
And just allowing that to happen and let it be known that that's okay if it does happen. It makes a world of difference as well.
And I'm sure it helps things with like retention, keeping people, because
Yeah.
that's the next piece, right? Now everybody's working remotely for the most part. So, or they want to work remotely, even if you're making people come back into the call center. For the majority, most of the statistics say they want to work remote.
Yeah.
And so, I love the point that you kind of touched on with how you're managing and developing, and even your supervisors. You have to hire a certain type of supervisors that have more compassion and may have the more ability to listen and coach and develop versus just drive statistics all the time.
Right.
So one thing that I've seen with the change of going into remote and hybrid and those type of things is the difference of the management within the call center culture, to where, 10 years ago, it was hit your numbers, get in here, let's go, rah, 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 whatever that is, to now companies are competing, right? They're competing for talent. You're trying to fill your seats with the best person possible that's going to be able to, give excellent customer service to your client, but you have to hit your numbers. Right. So those frontline managers, they have to have the ability to now not only just drive numbers, coach and develop and hit performance, but that other piece that you really hit on is in call center culture now, they have to have the ability to motivate, to, have compassion, to let somebody go for a couple hours because they know ultimately they're going to get rewarded with a better employee, so on and so forth. So
100%.
And that's awesome to see. And you know, you're not the only one that's talking about managing their operations that way. And it's needed for a long time. I've worked in really good operations. I've worked in really bad operations, and usually it's the trickle down effect, right? So if the number one piece of importance is always, you know, like a revenue per hour number, then every single person is marching to the same drum, and people at the very end of the chain are the ones sitting there going, you know, guys, I need this job, but I can't deal with this. So it's awesome. And I've actually had the pleasure to meet a couple of your supervisors and talk with them. And I think one of the key things you touched on earlier is you were allowed to restructure your team based on what you felt was needed in order to accomplish the job. And the rewarding thing is you actually found some talent that helped you transition to remote. Yeah. And it sounds like you found the right people that are helping you kind of, you know, grow this in the model that you would want. So what's next? So you're a remote operations now, I assume. You're not hybrid. You got everybody working from home. Is that the model that you see for the future, or is this
for the foreseeable future, Mike? You know, I mean,
okay.
Of course, things can change. You know, but as we see it right now, you know, we're very comfortable working from home. The past couple of years is what we've been doing. We've built our model, so to speak, around that at this point. You know, and we've been hiring all throughout the country. So even if there was an opportunity to go back to one central location, it wouldn't be feasible with the work staff that we have now, right? So, you know, I don't see us, you know, doing that anytime soon, or if at all, you know, as we've really worked hard the past couple of years to you know, expand our workforce from coast to coast.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know, it's usually two veins. I think you guys understand you struck a really good balance between home life and flexibility and still getting the job done at a very high level, which is awesome. And it's a good testament to the way that you seen, because I've been a director, I've been a regional manager, I've been in that role, and you had a vision, even though COVID kind of threw that in there, but I'm assuming you still had the vision of how you wanted to build the culture, how you seen when you were a supervisor, what you wanted to do different, right? And that's where it starts. So you're like, we got a lot of good tools here, but if we could just do this, we'd be in a better position. So that's awesome. So you're hiring now, you're hiring across the, you know, the US. Do you find out that being able to hire those people that are maybe more diversified, maybe instead of just, I think your operations is primarily in New Jersey at the time, right?
Yeah.
To where, I'm not going to say anything, but New Jersey's got kind of an accent sometimes, right? So you have all these agents calling Oklahoma, Alabama, Florida.
Sure.
Did you notice maybe some diversification in your dialect and stuff of the people you're hiring?
100%. You know, we have folks at our workforce from coast to coast, as I mentioned, from, you know, the deep South to California to New England and you know, the Pacific Northwest. So, you know, we're everywhere and everywhere in between. And absolutely, you know, we have, everyone sounds a little different, right? You know, it's definitely a plethora of accents and you know, just different outtakes on life in general. But it's really helped us have more personable conversations with our customers, because our customers are from everywhere as well, right? So, you know, it allows us to be able to, I mean, we'll put it this way, right? Who better to speak to somebody from Alabama, a customer from Alabama, than someone who's from that part of the world, right? You can build that rapport, you can have that personal conversation, and that's really helped, you know, in what we're trying to build here from a culture standpoint, you know, in our call center for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Now, looking forward and where you're at now, I'm assuming that you're not just comfortable, right? There's probably changes coming, some stuff that you want to try to grow into, and really, you know, kind of help develop the team and those type of things. Any advice for maybe people that went remote? Any advice of people that, maybe struggling on getting, people onboarded, or they're struggling with the hire process, any advice that you could share?
You have to build a team of leadership, right? That encompasses and understands what decentralized leadership is all about, right? Because the one thing that I was, once again, I'll go back to, when I was able to build my team, it's a team that has the integrity to get the job done. And that's what's really important. So sometimes, it's not looking at the representative level and the struggles there, but
Right.
looking at the management, the leadership team, and making sure that, hey, if I'm not here for a month, right? Is the job still going to get done? Is everyone still going to do what they need to do? Is everyone still going to be able to make the choices that they need to make on a daily basis? In my case, I'm lucky enough to say the answer is yes, right?
Right.
We focus very hard on that decentralized leadership concept, allowing our supervisors and managers to make the real-time choices that they need to make, that are going to directly impact, their specific operations. So it all starts with the leadership team, really, and then goes from there. As far as onboarding, it's the process and the training, really needs to be rethought. And that classroom, in my opinion, that classroom environment, having one individual trainer remotely in front of a group of people showing them what to do doesn't always have the impact as a self-pace, thinking
Got it.
more of that decentralized type, process,
Mhm.
allowing that new hire to be able to log into a module. If you have a cloud-based software or some
Sure.
type of intranet where you can do that, right? And allowing them to go through the module, giving them a certain amount of time and go through that themselves, and then following up. We've learned that is so, that is much more comprehensive for the new hire than the former of, this is how you do it, this is what you need to do, and so on and so forth. Because they're
Right.
learning at their own pace, they're learning in their own way, right? So that was tremendous for us when we were able to make that transition. And as far as retention, I mean, the world we live in, right? The retention's always going to be on the lower side. Let's just face it, right? It's a call center. This is what happens. But what has really helped, and if I said it once, I've said it 100 times, is the promoting that sense of inclusivity, making sure that every team member knows that they have a team that's there to support them, work them through their challenges, make them as successful as they possibly can be, through multiple touch points, through meetings, through scheduled formal one-on-ones, informal one-on-one coaching sessions. All these different things is a very, very big part of it as well.
Oh, it's awesome. And I can just feel your passion. This is something you love doing. I think the contact center space is great that you decided to leave auto mechanics and move into this. And talking with some of your supervisors and managers, I can tell that you spent a lot of time duplicating your efforts and really putting them in a position to succeed without you. And that's really hard as a leader, is to take the time and to duplicate their self versus just do it as I say, right? Versus this is why, and the whys behind it. So, I really appreciate the time that you spent today. I really appreciate, the people out there that are listening that are struggling with a remote environment. They're struggling with onboarding. You gave some really good nuggets. And especially when it comes to that training piece, is I've seen a lot of operations just do the same thing on Zoom that they were doing inside a class. And it doesn't work.
It's not as impactful.
Yeah, no, not at all. And we don't learn that way. And the people you're hiring probably doesn't learn that way. So appreciate your time. Obviously you guys are hiring. So if anybody's interested in coming to work for you with your great culture, I'm sure they can reach out to you on LinkedIn.
They absolutely can. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. You go to hearinglife.com. We got a careers page, great careers page there. But we are absolutely hiring. And I don't see a future where we're not hiring. We're always looking to expand. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Yes, sir.